You are listening to the Average Pundits podcast.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the Average Pundits podcast, your home of all things Premier League, and we are going to be talking about Brighton and Hove Albion this week on the episode of the Average Pundits. Currently sitting 17th in the table. It's been a bit of a weird one for Brighton. We're going to start off coming out the bat. I think I'm going to be defending a case. I think Reece is going to be pitching a case. As always, Reece is joined with me. Reece, you ready for this episode?
I am a pitcher indeed. I'm ready. I'm ready to breach these questions because I don't know whether it's the old head in me. I'm an old head football fan, but we're gonna kick this. We're gonna kick it off hot. It's a hot start. We're gonna kick it off. We're straight away the long ball from the kickoff. Graham Potter, right? Shares last name with Harry. Is he a managing wizard? I don't know. Joe, please try and explain why the football hipster may love Graham Potter.
The football hipster. Well, I think he has an interesting come-up story. I think obviously he was at Östersunds over in Sweden, and that's where he was making a name for himself. And it was really interesting to see an English manager elsewhere, obviously a way lesser league. But I think he got himself a lot of attention very early on, which was kind of like, okay, something's going to come of this guy at some point. We'll probably see him in the Premier League. And as of now, whilst he's been at Brighton, he's played 74 games with Brighton. He's won 18, he's lost 30 and drawn 26. Now, obviously, those are kind of similar stats that I think you'd maybe expect for a team lower down in the table. So I don't necessarily think he's taken the world by storm, but I do think he is a progressive manager. I think he does have good ideas. And I, for one, would like to see him with a club with a bit of budget. I think obviously it's wishful thinking to say that. There's lots of managers that I think would do good with a bigger budget, but one day it might be good to see him get that higher chance. And I think if he can try and find some point, if he can keep Brighton up this season, it'll be a job because they've been playing really good football, in my opinion. They've just been missing out on those points. It could be good for him. But I know you've got on the flip side, you're not as big of a fan.
Well, I just don't see what the big fuss is about. For me, would you say he's more of like a progressive manager that has a vision, that has ambition, that kind of doesn't suit Brighton, do you think?
Yeah, in a sense. I think he definitely has that forward progression thinking. He's like you said earlier, he was like a hipster man. He's a new wave manager, and he obviously had a full career before him. He was a player as well. And I think he came in with some fresh ideas. And I think in the summer, especially, he was able to bring in some good signings into Brighton. But through one reason or another, they've just struggled in some of the bigger games, mainly with their attacking output, which we'll mention far more in detail later. But I agree in a sense that maybe Brighton might not be the best destination for him, but he's got to keep them up this season. Because I also don't think they're in a position to sack him in any way, shape or form. I think he has to stay with Brighton.
Yeah, I think he will. Like, maybe it's me thinking that, a manager that's involved with a club that are level on points with a relegation side at the moment doesn't show that doesn't show that much ambition, and maybe a team like Burnley would maybe deserve to be lower than a team like Brighton Hove Albion based on the football that they play. Burnley have the joint lowest goal tally, I think, with West Brom. And Brighton and Hove Albion have been known to create some exciting football this year. But I feel like for me, I think if he was to go off to a club higher up the table and do, very good things, he shows a lot, as we'll get into later, he shows a lot in terms of ambition when it comes to signings. He shows trust in the youth. He signs a lot of young players. He also knows when to make smart signings too, which, it's a good, he's good at that. So maybe I'll warm to him over the course of either this podcast or the rest of the season if I pay more attention to him. But for now, I'm not sure where the hype is coming from.
Yeah, I think in that bottom six relegation battle, from obviously you've got your bottom three with Sheffield, West Brom, Fulham, but just above those with Brighton, Newcastle, and Burnley. Out of those entirety of the six clubs, I think two of the squads that I do really like. I like Newcastle's squad in full. There's a lot of players I like there, but clearly there's issues. Another podcast for another time. But it's Brighton as another squad which I think has rare gems of players in the team. I like a lot of their defenders. I like a lot of some of their signings that they made in the summer, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I feel like there is clearly at the moment something that's not going right for them. But perhaps that's something that we can break down in this podcast and see where we could help rebuild them.
Yes, definitely. And that kind of segues us nicely onto, kind of why we've chosen Brighton as the subject of this podcast today. Yeah, as you mentioned, they're 17th at the moment. They are level on points with 18th place Fulham. And I think Fulham, as we were talking before the podcast, they've been playing like their lives are on the line. Maybe big TK, maybe Tony Khan is, giving them the threatening of his wrestlers being put on them. But yeah, let's kind of dissect how the last, as I kind of like to do on this podcast, is dissect the last 5 games or so. Obviously, their last game they lost against Leicester, and the last, I think they haven't won a game basically in the last 5 games. They lost against Leicester, struggling West Brom, and Crystal Palace. They also drew with Aston Villa, who are in good form. I'll give them credit there, and also with Burnley. They drew with Burnley. Their last win, surprisingly, well, I would say surprisingly, but it's not exactly that surprising anymore, was at Anfield. They beat Liverpool 1-0. I'm not going to go into that because I can feel the hatred coursing through my veins as I talk about that. But yeah, they're currently on a -8 goal difference. I think they've scored about 26 goals, but let in, obviously more. But Joe, kind of, what are your feelings on how Brighton are doing at the moment?
Well, the thing which is really hard to get behind is that all of these results, all of the games they've been playing, it's such narrow margins. They beat Liverpool 1-0, they drew 1-1, they drew 0-0, they lost 2-1. They lost the 1-0 to West Brom, as you mentioned. And the most heartbreaking one, I think, has got to be the Leicester one, because Leicester are another team which at the moment they are struggling in their own right. They've fallen off a little bit, so much like Manchester United did, and they were very much fighting for up at the top spots, but they just kind of slowed down a bit and let some points get away from them, so they have to kind of clamber back. But they went 1-0 up, and then it was like Leicester don't look like they're going to get anything out of this, and then it looked pretty concrete after they managed to get the equaliser. I think it was Vardy who scored the equaliser, that it was going to be a draw. And then what was it, like the 87th minute? It was like a Marty scored the goal, and then you're just thinking like, oh my God, like Brighton just cannot catch a break at this rate. So I think based on these results that we're looking at, it's the worrying thing is the lack of is these thin margins, which suggests that maybe it's not the defensive output that's the issue. It's got to be the lack of goals that are coming in, because in a lot of games you expect the odd goal to come in, and especially if we're playing higher end clubs like Liverpool and Leicester and stuff, you expect to concede. But it's the goals which you're not getting, which is losing them the game. So I feel like that's something we need to really look into.
Yeah, I do think that that's one of the areas that we'll need to cover in terms of where their problems lie. In that game against Leicester, as you mentioned, the goal came from, I think, I believe it was Adam Lallana, who I think was playing as a forward in that game.
Oh, of course it was Lallana. Yeah, it was Lallana.
So I think that, I think he was playing up front with Maupay.
Yeah.
And that's where the goals. I'll break down the last starting 11 that Graham Potter put out. That was against Leicester. Robert Sanchez in goal. Joel Veltman and Dan Burn as the wing backs. Ben White and Lewis Dunk, I think one of either the most promising or kind of one of the most sought after, defensive duos in the Premier League at the moment. Yves Bissouma, Alexis McAllister, Leandro Trossard, and Pascal Gross were the midfielders, and obviously, as I mentioned, Maupay and Lallana at the kind of as the forwards at the moment. So, where do you think in that team that it just doesn't connect? Do you think that playing Lallana, although the goal came from Lallana, do you think playing him up front, they just don't have a lot of attacking options?
Nah, see, this is interesting you mention this because Graham Potter's preferred formation tends to be a 4-2-3-1, but he laid out a 4-4-2 in that last game. But playing Lallana in that striker position, obviously they brought Lallana in on a free, which is a smart bit of business as a player to slot into the midfield if you already have depth there, but you can't rely on an aging and more importantly, an injury prone Adam Lallana to do all the work for you. So it's good he gets the odd goal, but are you going to rely on him week in, week out? And you're just not. And although Mope has had some interesting, campaigns in the Premier League as of late, he tends to get a few goals at the end of the season. He's still not the star-studded striker. So is 100% the attacking outputs that I'm mainly interested in. But also, that midfield pairing of Basuma and McAllister, Basuma's been somebody who they're going to have to fight to keep hold of. We are aware of that. They're going to have to fight to keep hold of him because clubs are already, I think they're sniffing around and they're like, yeah, this is a guy we can mold into a real top talent. So they're going to have to look at Basuma. Trossard and Pascal Gross, both of those players, I think, are very good additions to the team. I think they're very good. McAllister comes in and he kind of does. He's not the most exciting player. I think the main thing that they're needing, like as I mentioned, is attacking outlet. So they need someone who's going to be a creative, which could be a Lallana, but you're going to have to essentially build around him. If you want to have Lallana as the creative, you need a solidified attacker. And I'm not sure if Mope is going to be the guy to lead them to the heights in the Premier League, in all honesty.
Yeah, that's good that you mentioned that, and I think that we'll come on to who we think, who I think should probably come into this Brighton side. Given say if they in a theoretical world that Brighton managed to stay up this summer and they're able to spend a certain budget that we've allocated and take forward to next season. So if we look at that team, and I think it's clear to I think we look onto the departures before we go on to the new signings, who they brought in, who actually left the club in the summer just gone, or the January. So players that aren't exactly too missed. I think for me anyway, is it a guy like Glenn Murray who left on a free transfer. I think that for me, he was an aging striker. He could still score goals, which is like the attacking output. But he's what, mid-30s, 37 maybe, I think.
Yeah.
So I think I think that was a bit of a mistake. I think Montoya, him leaving, I'm not sure whether that was that could have added a bit of a defensive boost. The loan moves for Shane Duffy and Bernardo too. I think that maybe they could bring Duffy back from his loan, or maybe they could bring Bernardo back from his loan. And the two that brought in some source of income, which was Aaron Moy and Anthony Knockaert, who actually is now with relegation rivals in Fulham. So looking amongst those departures, who do you think would probably slot into the squad nicely?
I think Shane Duffy's always good to have around. He's experienced. He knows the role of centre back, and obviously you nailed on starters are 100% Lewis Dunk, and then obviously you've got Ben White, who's young, promising, and he needs to be playing regular football alongside Dunk. But for a third centre back to have knocking around it, that's not bad at all. I think Aaron Moy, whilst he was at Brighton, there were times where I remember he was at Huddersfield as well, and he was a good player for Huddersfield. So it was a bit of a coup for Brighton to bring him in. But again, just a signing which didn't really work too much for them. So not really a loss there. Same with Montoya, clearly didn't work, as why they let him go for free. And then Knockaert as well. Surprised them actually get 10 million for him, to be honest with you. So fair enough for them in that respect. But out of all of those ones, the only one that I think maybe keeping Shane Duffy around would have been good to kind of like to add into for the defense. But it's clear that based on their departures, there wasn't any massive inputs which has affected them this season, because a lot of the players they got rid of were kind of surplus to requirements.
Definitely, I think that no one here would really that they've let go permanently would fit back into this squad. They let go of Nokia, who kind of plays the same position really as Trossard,
Mm.
and he is probably one of Brighton's biggest sparks in terms of attacking outlets. I think that for me was it was the right time to let him go. In terms of the new signings that they brought in, um, who do you look going down the list? You know, I'll let you kind of dissect who they've brought in and where they've strengthened. I want you to go down the list and like say like where they fit in to this side.
Well, you can see some trends going through there. You see a lot of bolsters to defense and midfield, but nothing to attack, which is kind of highlighting our issues, which is what we're talking about here. We've already mentioned Adam Lallana on a free transfer. He's 32 years old. I can't fault it really. It's a free transfer as long as there was a plan in place, which is the problem. The one of the ones that I was extremely interested in was them signing Joel Veltman for £900,000. £900,000, I think they signed him for. And I remember us mentioning this in the summer when we were talking about some of our favourite signings. And I just remember he was quite prominent at Ajax. I'm thinking he's gone for less than $1 million. Like, is there an issue there, or what's going on? Because he's valued at around 7 to 8 million. So you'd think they'd be playing at least 10 to get him out of a big club like Ajax, but whatever, they managed to get in a good experienced player, and he is a centre back, but obviously Brighton have been using him out wide as well, considering they've got such a good solidified centre back duo. And in terms of other defensive signings, Jean-Paul Van Heck, I believe his name is, a 20-year-old centre back. They also bought him from Holland, young, promising, I'm sure, but there's not too much that we can really say on him for now. And then also Mikhail Karbanik, I believe, from Legia Warsaw in Poland, 19 years old, 5.4 million again. Clearly something to him, that they paid a bit of money for him, so hopefully he can add more depth to their side. But none of the signings that they made really screamed out to me. In terms of midfield, Jacob Mulder, again, from Lech Poznan, don't know too much about him. I can't really say too much. 21 years old, but they did pay 10 million for him. So again, a lot of these signings seem like they're going to be for the future. The one which definitely did turn some head, well, certainly turned my head, was Moises Caicedo in the central midfield role, 19 years old. And the reason why that turned my head is because I was following that transfer quite a bit. I remember seeing it was the journalists we had on in the summer, Jamie Jackson, Paul Hurst. These guys were regularly tweeting out that United especially were monitoring this guy, which made me think, oh, okay, he's from the Ecuadorian league. So it's like, wow, the range is really out there. Played for Independiente, and he's 19 years old. And he plays as like a holding midfielder. And I was waiting to see if that would go over the line. And then I look one day and Brighton have got him. And one thing I will never forget is, well, when Brighton signed him, I'm not sure if you remember, they put that picture of him up. And I was like, have they photoshopped his head onto this picture? But it was actually the real photo, but it looked so, like, if you haven't seen it, go and try and find that picture, because it was honestly so bizarre. But again, another signing for the future. So you've got to look at some of the signings they did make in the long run. You got to think, okay, they didn't spend much money. Fair enough. They brought some players in, but there's nothing in there which bolstered where they needed to bolster, which is the problem. So attack wise, you've got to say it was quite a poor transfer window, the last couple.
Yeah, when looking at where they are now, the lack of goals that they've got. Yeah, they did get, they kind of got Casado on a bit of a steal as well, especially if Manchester United was sniffing around this young guy. They would have probably paid maybe, especially if it's Manchester United coming to your club, you're going to ask maybe double what Brighton are going to pay, right?
Yes.
So I think, in terms of their transfer window, obviously they didn't bring any strikers in, but they did bolster a lot of players from midfield. They brought in a smart signing, I think, for Lallana.
Well, I was going to say the only player that they did bring in terms of the attack, but again, it is what it is. They brought in Danny Welbeck because he was on a free transfer. Again, well, no, he wasn't even a free transfer. He just didn't have a club, so they brought him in because his deal came to an end at Watford. And again, that is he's 29, he's experienced. That's fine, but is there a plan in place to assist him? Because they only had Mope really, and they're playing Lallana, so that. Also, the most prominent thing which happened for them in that window was bringing Ben White back off his loan from Leeds, because he's been solidified in that team ever since.
Definitely, I mean, he's definitely going to be one for for the future as well, especially kind of in this rebuild. He's going to be the centerpiece almost
Yeah.
for this side. You look at their output. They've only scored 27 goals this season. That's among some of the lowest in the league. You've got Burnley that have 20 goals. I think Fulham have 22. West Brom have 20. I think Sheffield United also have about 16. But then it's Brighton and Hove Albion. So you kind of see where they're coming from in terms of goals, goals scored. But they actually haven't conceded. They've only conceded 35, and to be that low, they must have a great defense.
Yeah, I think their defense is strong. It's clear to see that it could be a lot worse. At 27 matches played, they've only actually lost 11 of those matches. So a lot of these are just going like scrappy draws. They're just throwing points away from. So there's got to be an element there that they are doing right. But I don't know if you saw the shooting accuracy is 29%.
Yeah.
Now that's horrendous. Like that, there's clear issues there.
Yeah, definitely. To be fair, like you mentioned, like there are issues, and they have drawn the joint most games in the league at the moment. They've drawn 11, which is exactly the same as the team below them, in Fulham. The only difference between those two teams is that Fulham have played one extra game and have lost it. But you look at a team like Brighton; they've won 5 games but drawn 11. Yeah, if they'd have turned some of those scrappy draws, or say if they would have not conceded another goal, they were able to draw out a 1-0 or able to get that 0-0 into a 1-0, they would be significantly higher up the table. They would be competing in the mid-table with teams like Crystal Palace and Southampton.
Yeah. It's frustrating. It's the same situation with a lot of these clubs lower down because there's so many, they get overlooked. I think there's aspects to their game and there's aspects to the team which are doing really well, but it's just if the people up at the top aren't backing them in the ways that they need to be backed, and if the scouts can't see this stuff. I mean, it looks plain and obvious to us as fans of football, and we can see the problems, but some reason up at the top financially, I think, has got to be the main reason. It's a little bit harder because, I mean, if you look at actually how much was spent in the summer, they had an income of, like, I think it was like just under 18.5 million, and they spent 25. So, they're clearly not spending that much money. I mean, we even saw it was only like last season, like Aston Villa spent like 100 million, and that was coming up from the Championship. And you're thinking there's obviously clubs which have more money and there is wealthier owned clubs, but you've got to spend a bit of cash if you want some ambition to progress, haven't you? You've got to spend a bit.
Yeah, you do. You've got to put a bit of your own money, especially if you're an owner that kind of wants to succeed. You have to put that money in, and I think that kind of the way that you earn money, you have to have those pieces too. So that kind of leads us on nicely to our next point about who, how do we basically help Brighton in terms of who we're going to sign, or either who we're going to sign or who we're going to let go. We have to raise funds somehow, and I think as a base budget, I think we agreed, off camera, £20 million is it's a low budget, but it's a low team. They've just survived technically. So this is for the summer of 2021 to bring in for the 2021-22 season, which is actually going to be Mark Noble's last season. On another topic, which we'll probably cover at some other point. That's big news going around the league that's going to be Mark Noble's last season. So £20 million for the next season, and I have 4 departures that I have kind of drawn up. One player or 1 or 2 players, I think, or actually 3 of these players, I think, are going to basically be replaced straight up. But for
Okay.
me, these don't fit into the starting lineup, and the players that they actually brought in this summer, just gone, could also probably, replace these as well. So the first player I've actually gone with may surprise you, and want to give you. I want you to give your opinions on this. He's played 21 games this season and only contributed 2 goals, and that's Solly March.
Solly March to go.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see it. I think again when I've seen him come on and play occasionally, I think I remember when he played us. There's stuff to him. There's legs to him again, but it's whether he's going to get up there and compete with the other Titans and whether he's going to be as prominent in the side. So I could back that if that's going to make them some money. I'm not sure how much he's going to generate, but I could definitely see that happening.
So he's 26. You know, his market value is about 8 million. So maybe they could push that up to about 2 more million. I'd say they probably sell him for around 10 to 12 million pounds at most. Potentially, he can move on to a slightly bigger club, maybe go on to a different country, start getting some more experience. But unless he goes back down to the Championship, and if Brighton are to go down to the Championship, they will probably keep him. But for me, I think that funds can be raised with Solly March. I think that's probably going to be the first player that we go for. The next player I've gone for, and I'd like to get your opinion on this player, is Davy Proper.
Okay, so Proper's another one of those guys which every now and again you come in and he slots in there and he seems like he's kind of one of those guys keeping the team ticking over. But again, right now, Bassuma's the guy. He is the guy, and he's also the guy people are going to be looking for. So that's going to raise more questions. But I think he might have even had some injury issues this season. He's been a little bit if not, he's been out of favor. So I could see him going. I could genuinely see him going in general in a wider overview. So I could agree with that one as well.
Yeah, he's 29. He's also marketed at about the same value as March too, about £8 million. So again, potentially about 10 million, I'd say, probably at most, 10 million pounds. So that already is 20 million pounds to add on to that original 20, which I think could be, a good, find a good place to go and fit, maybe go back to the Netherlands and try and find his place amongst there. So yeah, that's my second play. The third one is a bit of a stretch, but I have my reasons because he's going to be directly replaced. And that is a player we've already mentioned within the starting lineup. He's kind of aging. He's the same age as Davy Proper. And it's Pascal Gross.
Yeah. Again, it's a lot of it is just replacing players and getting younger blood in there. It's always a bit of a risk because the ones who had the experience there are the old war horses who come out, they know their role, but you need flair, you need some ingenuity in that team. So if some of the veterans like Gross have to be sacrificed for that, it has to happen. And Potter is a progressive thinking manager. I think he would want to see some change there. So I 100% agree. Again, Gross is another person I could see heading for the exit door.
So that's kind of my 30 million on top of that 20 million. There is one final player that I think if they can shift him, they should. Whether it's probably only for like 5 million added to the budget just in case they need it, and that's Danny Welbeck.
Yeah, I think Welbeck's it would be a tougher one because they brought him in from no club essentially, and I think he was genuinely brought in with the ambition of being like, okay, he's going to be the guy. He's going to hopefully we can get something out of him and we can catch his second, third, fourth wind and have a decent Premier League run. I'll never forget like when United let him go, he went to Arsenal, scored on his debut against us. It was bound to happen. And then I think he scored in his Watford debut. He might have even scored for Brighton. It wouldn't surprise me if he did. But it's genuinely just a kind of ticking thing over with Danny Welbeck. He's an experienced guy, but he is a source of revenue. They could potentially sell him, but I think it would be a harder one to push.
He scored 2 goals in 17 appearances, 7 off the bench. He's 30 years of age. I remember when he was coming onto the scene, he was one of the hottest prospects at Manchester United, spent a lot of his good years at Arsenal as well. So, and he has come through with a lot of important goals. He had, 9 goals in one season for Manchester United, or a couple seasons actually for Manchester United. So he's never really been that kind of player. He's always kind of been that promising. He's never hit double figures in any Premier League season, which is kind of mad if you think about it. But he's never been that guy, that guy Welms. So
you have to wonder with those kind of stats, or like he's fair play, he's managed to stick around the Prem so long. Maybe going and trying his talents out in the Championship or abroad, for something else, it might not have been the worst decision possible. I know it gets used so often now, but like people with Premier League experience, and obviously you've got David Beckham's into Miami. I mean, the MLS in general, I think it's a really good place for aging English players to go and get some extension out of their career. I mean, I wouldn't put that past him.
Into Miami, pair him up with Higuain, I think is playing out there at the minute. So pair both of those up together up front. I think the MLS would be an ideal situation for him. So that's like an extra 5 million on top of the budget. So at most, I think on top of that, the total budget after sales is about 55 million. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I think I could see that.
Okay, so here is where it's going to get a bit exciting, folks. Make sure you don't adjust your TV sets. So here is where I'm going to suggest strengthening. So the goalkeeper position, I don't think that Sanchez is good enough, in my opinion. I think that he's prone to letting in a few goals. That's the whole of the defense, other than maybe the left back position, will be strengthened. Veltman being brought in for chips is unbelievable. Ben White and Dunk, they aren't moving. Ben White is going to be the focal point of that defense. Ideally, in a rebuild for a team that's striving for success for years.
Yeah,
him and Bissouma for years. So I've gone for the left back position as well,
Okay.
along with a direct replacement for Gross in a right midfielder and also a striker.
Okay, I'm interested.
So I've mainly stayed around English teams for the majority of these players. However, one player is from out in I believe he's I think he's from the Dutch league.
Okay.
And that's where I think I'm going to go there second to last.
Okay.
My player that I don't think really needs to come in because their defense is already strong is a left back. Now, I was looking through this, and I have not been on Twitter for a couple of days, so I have not been around the hype of Omar Richards, who I was going to be picking, but then realised he's going to Bayern Munich.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, that I had to change for my championship club there. I've in fact gone to Bristol City, and I have gone and chose Jay De Silva, who plays left back for Bristol City at the moment. He has played there. He's 22 at the moment, and his predominant position is a left back, but he can play in that left midfield role. He's currently valued at about £4 million. He actually came through Chelsea's academy, had a few spells at Charlton as well, played in the Chelsea youth, came through the Luton academy, went through to the Chelsea youth, was at Chelsea for a long time, loans everywhere like Chelsea do.
Yeah.
And he's now permanently at Luton. He has been since 2019. His contract's set to run out in 2023, but for about £8 million, the left back positioning could be strengthened with Jay De Silva.
Okay. Well, I mean, a young player, an experienced player, already so young but so experienced. It's worth taking a punt on the Championship. I mean, we've seen that recently. A lot of clubs have gone down to the Championship, and it's paid off. And it's not just it's even clubs higher up. It's top 6 clubs. You've seen Liverpool recently use the Championship, bringing in Ben Davies. Obviously, we haven't seen too much of him yet, but Liverpool did it.
Let's just not mention Liverpool at the moment. Let's just not.
That's fine.
Why would they bring in Ben Davies?
You don't know, man. He could be good. You don't know. He probably won't be, but he might be.
The likes that he's ever going to solve our centre back issues is very slim. Back onto Brighton. He'd probably fit into Brighton more than he does Liverpool.
He'd probably fit into Brighton more, but I mean, even like clubs like United went to Swansea to go pick up Daniel James. We see clubs going to the Championship now. So Jake De Silva, left back, take a punt. I could see that happening.
Yeah, and that's one of the few players one of 3 players I've got from the Championship. Wow. I have not gone. The rest of my players are not from the Champions, from the Premier League. They're all from the Championship actually, and I think I've tried to go with kind of how Graham Potter usually does his business, it usually goes youth. The
Yeah.
youth can guide Potter into the future, and he's got some of those experienced players like Veltman, like Dunk to lead them on, and Lallana even as well. Uh, and I think that these young players being brought in can definitely help them go forward. My next player is a goalkeeper that I think, obviously Sanchez for me. I don't think he's, I don't think he's ready to lead a team. Whereas you need a goalkeeper that's going to have that experience in playing time, but also has youth, because goalkeepers, they have, if they're young, they've got so many years to grow. And maybe this could
Yeah.
be the stepping stone for this guy to go on for more. This guy this season in the championship has played 33 games and has only conceded 24 goals. He has kept 17 clean sheets and started 97% of the games in the championship. And my player for you, he's worth about 7 million, is Freddie Woodman from Swansea.
Freddie Woodman from Swansea. We mentioned him in the I think it might have been Wolves. I think there was the Wolves rebuild. Newcastle's his parent club, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I think he, again, as we mentioned before, it's an interesting little transfer. I think that could be. I would 100% agree. I would like to see him coming and playing for the Premier League, because I think when that loan finishes, I think obviously he's played so much first team football, he's made an impression at Swansea. He's not going to want to go to Newcastle and be number 3, or he's not going to want to get loaned out again. He's going to be like, right, do you have plans for me, or are you going to let me go? And I think Newcastle they'll probably want to keep him, but they might have their hand forced. 23 years old. There's so much room to grow there.
But with a team like, here's the thing: when you've got a chairman like Mike Ashley, you're wanting to get as much money as possible. If you're offered 10 million for your third choice keeper, you're going to take it, aren't you?
Yeah, in theory, you're gonna snatch it.
So they've got Dubravka and Carl Darlow as well.
Yeah.
They why not let Woodman go? It's a good fee, £10 million for the 24-year-old that's not going to get a sniff at your first team anytime soon. If Bruce doesn't have him in the plans, get rid of him. £10 million from Newcastle. I think it's a realistic buy for Brighton.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's those kind of situations that clubs need to be monitoring more, and because three goalkeepers all pushing for first at a club, it's carnage. So, I 100% agree with that. They should definitely go and look for him.
Marvelous. I feel like I'm on an episode of like Room 101 or something like that. I'm trying to pitch stuff to you. So I think my next, I think I'm going to go in order of how much they're going to spend, like how much they're going to cost.
Okay.
In terms of where they've got to buy them from and stuff. So my next one is going to cost potentially around 15 to 20 million. I'd say like 15 million is like, this is where the expensive boys come in.
Yeah.
I haven't gone over 20 million for a player.
Mm.
I would say this is about maybe 15 to 18 million. The whole budget, I haven't used the budget after the sales. I think I've left about 2 million out, which is, it leaves them 2 million to maybe grow their academy or something. But this guy is actually not from England. It's where, Pascal Gross, Gross is German, never mind. Proper. Is where, the same country, the Netherlands. He's a very young striker, as I've kind of the theme here. He's 20 years old, playing for AZ Alkmaar at the moment. He's played 23 goals, started 84% of the games, scored 11 goals, which is something that is needed really for Brighton at the moment. And that's Myron Boadu.
Yeah. So that guy is a football manager beast. I'll say that on a side note. Football manager and a FIFA beat genuinely. But but he is exactly the kind of mold that I think a lot of clubs are going to be looking for him soon. So to go in there early and kind of grab him before people have got the chance, because even he would probably view a club like Brighton as a stepping stone if he's already showing this much promise to get out of the Dutch league and come over to here and do a job here. I think he would view Brighton as a stepping stone. So it's something that I don't think is unrealistic. He's already doing really well in his home country, to come over here to the most competitive league in the world and start firing on all cylinders in the Premier League, that puts him on such a good platform to go and get a move to a higher Prem club or to push on throughout Europe. So I 100% think that would be a good move for both parties. I think seeing Myron Bodo come to the Premier League in general would be very cool, because he's young and he's cool. He's getting a lot of people talking. So I think 15 to 20, I think, would be a great fee for him. They might want more, and it might be hard to get him for that fee. But if they could manage it, that's a coup for a guy that young and that talented. That's a coup.
And this is why I kind of added in Jay De Silva as a left back doesn't have to be brought in. They can go with what they're rocking in the defense, because that's not an issue. They need to fix this attack, and Jay De Silva is one of those players that doesn't need to be brought in, and they can spend the extra 8 million in trying to pursue Bodu.
Yeah.
The eyes at the moment in the Premier League are on certain managers, and Potter is one of those managers that has the media attention. So that's how I thought about it. It's funny that you brought up the Premier League's eyes are going to be on Bodu. It's a bigger platform.
Yeah.
And especially for a team like Brighton, who have had a struggling season, they're going to have a manager that's going to turn it round. And if in about a year's time, we're sat here in March and Brighton are 10th, we're going to think, wow, what are the factors that have happened here? Graham Potter, Boadu, who's potentially going to have this big resurgence, and we've seen this with Malpay as well.
Yeah.
He's been brought in. He's been a very promising striker from Brentford, and I think that's only going to continue. So, I think Boadu would be potentially a good fit for the system.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. 100% agree. And I think you have one more player to mention.
I do, and it's a direct Pascal Gross replacement. We're back in the Championship for this one, and it's another risk, because I'm not sure how teams in the Championship, they're more likely to take fees lower.
Yeah.
So I have gone for a player that's probably should be heavily sought out by top 6 teams, like the Spurs, Arsenal, stuff like that. But to fix that right midfield spot, you're going to need someone that has flair, can create, can score goals, more importantly as well, to add to that firepower. He's a guy that's been all over the field. He's played 29 games, scored 10 goals, 12 assists. Would probably cost her in the region maybe about 20 million pounds. His market value is about 14. He's 24 years of age. His market value is kind of the highest it's ever been at the moment. It's Emiliano Buendia.
Buendia. Well, see, I thought at first I thought that was going in a different direction, but now that when I heard the stats, I was like, yeah, okay, it's Buendia. That guy being in the Championship, that guy it's a crime. And did you say 10 goals and 12 assists?
10 goals, 12 assists in 29 appearances, and also he didn't start all of those games.
Wow, that is fantastic. I mean, you look when you saw him on the campaign with Norwich in the Premier League, you could see that guy was talented. But that's impressive stats for that guy. So I think there were rumors at one point when he was going down. I think Arsenal was sniffing. I think I saw some links to Atletico Madrid, and I was thinking clearly this guy's got something about him. But if no one's capitalizing on it, why not take a punt on him? Why not? I think that's a guy which I think Norwich will want a bag for now, because somehow they were able to hold on to him, Max Aarons, and Todd Cantwell in the same season. To think that Jamal Lewis is the only one they lost is crazy, because he was good enough to get a move, Jamal Lewis 100%, but the other 3 as well were also fantastic. But Buendia to Brighton, if they could do it, I'm all for it. But that would be a tough buy.
It will, for Brighton of all teams to kind of compete with all of them. But if the interest isn't there from those top teams, and the prospect of coming into back to the Premier League is there for Buendia, I think that could be the move. Again, the hipster's choice manager Graham Potter is going to draw some attention to that club. It always will do. And the football statisticians on the Twitter statisticians, as I like to call them, they love Graham Potter, and they would love a signing like this. All of these players, I believe, are under 24, like 24 and under, which is the philosophy of kind of what Potter was doing this transfer window. Just gone, obviously bringing in Veltman as well, but bringing in these young talents. So I've taken the formation from the previous game against and kind of adapted that to fit my signings. So In goal, I've got Freddie Woodman. My right back is Veltman. My two centre backs, Ben White and Lewis Dunk. My left back is Jada Silva, if brought in. If
Yep.
not, Dan Burn is already doing a fantastic job in that left back position. My centre midfielders, obviously Basuma's going to be that anchoring central defensive midfielder.
Yep.
We know that already. Him and Ben White are going to be the keys around this rebuild. Rebuild to contendership. This is what we want to try and do. Get them back in momentum. We want this team to fly up the tables after we're done with it.
Yeah.
We want to take this team goodbye. So in that other central midfielder spot, you either have Adam Lallana or McAllister. Either way, McAllister's slightly younger. He's in the team already. He's doing his work. Lallana's that experienced player. If he stays, if he keeps firing form, he's getting a few goals. Why not keep him in the team?
Yeah, 100% agree.
And then obviously in that left midfield, Leandro Trossard, who's also doing wonders for Brighton. And then the top two, Neil Maupay and Myron Bodu. So then Maupay and Bodu both have like pass and move type situation. One can hold the ball up, the other one can run in behind and just run off that type of of play there. And obviously Emiliano Buendia in that right midfield spot to help with either the creation or the goal department.
Yeah, it'll be fantastic to see what anyone watching this, listening to this, thinks of these options, because obviously there's some what I'd probably call dream signings in there for a club like Brighton. So if any of you guys are watching, listening to this, you can get in touch with us on our social media platforms over at Instagram at The Average Pundits, same on Facebook at The Average Pundits, Twitter at Pundits Average. And obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, the big one, you can comment down below. We love the engagement. And whilst you're there, leave a like and subscribe. That would be fantastic. I mean, I think we're on 131 subs at the moment. If you check up there, I'm pretty sure we are, Reece. Yeah, 131.
Yes. just had a little look at the border, but yeah, 131 subscribers. Make sure we're close to the goal of 150. So make sure we're on the way to 1,000. We're more than an eighth of the way to 1,000 now. So make sure we continue on. If you want to comment down below or get involved with us, who you think should sign for Brighton and Hove Albion, keep it. I've tried to be a little realistic. Obviously there's dream signings in there with Boadu and Buendia, but that's kind of just the football manager head in me. But I think that's what I would do if I was in charge of Brighton. Let me know what you think, or let us both know what you think you would do if you were put in charge of Brighton and Hove Albion. Do you think that the team I've just listed would get relegated? Maybe, because I don't have the tactics of Graham Potter, obviously. But yes, it's been a really, really fun rebuild, and let us know also if what teams you want to see us rebuild next.
Yeah, 100%. We've been really enjoying doing these rebuilds. So as always, let us know on all the links we said before. Like and subscribe to this video if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on your favorite streaming services, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you give us a follow. Thank you as always, guys, and we will see you next time.
For the latest football content, subscribe to The Average Pundits on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite streaming service and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.